Hi, everybody. I'm Darren,
I'm Amanda.
and Amanda will tell you why we started Schutzhund Life.
We started the Schutzhund Life Working Dog podcast because we're extremely passionate about the German Shepherd dog breed, as well as the sport of Schutzhund, also known as IPO, IGP, which is a sport that is originated for primarily the German Shepherd dogs. And, Darren has a long history in the sport. I have a history in the sport, although it's not as flashy as Darren's. But together, we love the sport, we love our dogs, and we want to share that with you and be an advocate for the sport and for the breed. And just kind of share our personal journey with you, talk about some important and relevant things within the sport, within the community. And we'll start off this episode with it being more of an introduction to ourselves and our dogs, starting with Darren explaining his history and accomplishments within the.
So my history in the sport is I started over 18 years ago. Back then it was called Schutzhund. Today is called IGP. My first dog was Flynn von Dragonhaus, and I bought him through a couple that was at the working dog club I was at. And 8-week-old puppy, I had a hard time picking which one. I had second pick, and I had a hard time picking which one. And then the gentleman there, he grabbed the dog puppy and he said, "Here, take him. He's your dog." So Flynn von Dragonhaus was his name. I called him Jet for short. So anybody that knows Jet, knows him by that name. And I did quite well with him. I've gained a lot of knowledge through this dog, and I was fortunate to take a lot of seminars, and I have some very influential people in my life that I worked with, and one of them was Lance Collins. So he's a Canadian judge, and him and his wife Gabby have made it to the worlds multiple times themselves, and I still use today a lot of Lance's theories and techniques. And another influence was Jürgen Zank. And after I took my first Jürgen Zank seminar, that's when everything just really started to click for me. And my training came to like a whole different level compared to when I first started. So I've won multiple regional championships with Jet, and a lot of high end trials, high end tracking, and so I was really successful for him. And then in 2015, I left my dog club I was at, and I had a group of people that wanted to work with me, and I started my own working dog club at that time. And then that same year, I took Jet to German Shepherd World Championships, and ended up being number one Canadian and 18th in the world. So, which is quite a good accomplishment for me, just for the fact that not many people have the opportunity or have the ability to take their very first dog to the world championships. But in saying that, if you work with great people and stuff like that, it can happen pretty good. Like if you have people that are really passionate and helping you out also. So back then, when I left my club, Jet only had IGP1, and I ended up training my own dog in protection and basically had to do everything myself because I didn't have a helper, which is, it's not a common thing for people to do, but we had a pretty good balance in our training that I was able to do that. So, and then, then I retired Jet at, I think he was 7 years old. I retired him. And then I did a breeding, and I have AJ von Haas and or von Hage, and so I trained him to IGP3. So, and he's been a good dog. Also, he reminds me a lot of Jet, and just unfortunately, I wasn't able to take him to the highest level to World Championships because of all the world stuff going on and timing, And we got a wedding come up in this year. So in July, we're getting married. And so we're just focusing all of our time and everything on that. So Amanda and I met in the dog club. So she can tell you a little bit of the story on how we met and her dog Mason.
So I had always dreamed of owning a German Shepherd. It's always been a breed that I was intrigued by, and I always knew that at some point in time I would have. I grew up with, a few smaller breed dogs that were family dogs, but I always knew I wanted a German Shepherd to be my own. And so when I had moved out and I was financially independent enough and stable enough, I was working totally remotely from home. I thought this is the time for me to get my dream dog. So I did a lot of research and I found a really good breeder that bred the kind of dog that I wanted. I went about it the opposite way, where I wasn't intending on doing the sport. It wasn't a primary focus of mine. I definitely wanted to focus on having a companion, a good dog, a guardian, a protector, a best friend for life. And if we could do the sport as just an extra, then that would be good enough for me. So I ended up getting a West German show line German Shepherd, and his name is Mason. He's the best thing that has ever happened to me. My entire life changed the day I brought him home. And after I had brought him home for about a month, I had contacted a few people within the sport, and they led me to Darren. So I gave him a call, and he invited me out to his club at the time. And the rest is kind of history. That's how we met. And fortunately, they were extremely welcoming to Mason and I, and we started doing some training. We struggled a lot. He was not the easiest train, that's for sure. And it was extra difficult, seeing as how I was new to dog training and to a dog sport. I was a little bit overwhelmed and in over my head, but we stuck with it. And now, he's made a lot of really good progress. He's 2 years old, and, he's just impressing me every day. He's just the perfect dog for what I wanted. Great home dog, great companion, and he's doing really well in the sport. So I've got some high hopes for him. And he's just been a really good guy.
Yeah. Mason's been pretty good. I remember saying years ago, because there's always a head between working lines and show lines, and I personally always wanted to work a show line dog, just to show that the fact that through good training and good relationship with the dog, and not taking it to the point where it's just like, because it's a show line dog, it needs to be treated extra special or differently than a working line dog. It's either whether the dog can do it or the dog can't, what it really boils down to. And Mason really showed me that he can do it. With the good training, dogs like that, and I'm sure you guys will see in some future videos from us, and we've had some really good comments from him already, having him come in the blind and having people that don't know him go damn, I did not expect that from him. So, he's really an amazing dog, and he has his limitations. We really struggle with tracking with him because he doesn't have that food drive, but everything else, all the other things there are there. And with him too is the jumps are going to be a little bit of an issue, I think.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's 100 pounds right now. So
yeah, he's huge.
Yeah. And, for jumps, you need to really have that hind end strength in him. So Amanda's doing lots of work right now to trying to build up that hind end strength. And we'll see how he does on that part of it. So.
Yeah, I never thought, back in the day when he was just a puppy, that we'd make it this far. So, I never count him out. He impresses me all the time. And we'll talk a lot more about him and about show line versus working line, because that's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about, having one of each. Now, I definitely have some thoughts and some comments that may or may not be controversial, but we'll see in future episodes. So stay tuned for that one. But speaking of my second dog, are twins that we got from Germany, 2 puppies that Darren and I imported last summer. We'll let Darren speak on how that all came about, because it's a pretty funny and ironic story.
Yeah, so I was at the point where I needed another dog, and for me, it was either between wanting to get an older dog or a young dog again. And I like having puppies, so I had a friend. I called a friend of mine, and he looked for us for a while. I think we had a couple of prospects on the go. We had one female that didn't take, so that kind of put us out for a little bit. And then he called me about this litter in Germany, and von Haas Siegerblunt. And so talking to the gentleman in Germany, we really like the bloodlines. They're pretty Gucci bloodlines, and they're both of them were bicolor, which were they all look nice too. So, but anyway, so when it was coming to bring the puppies in, my friend said, well, because it's so expensive to import from Germany, and he's like, well, you might as well bring 2 dogs in and then maybe sell one. And at that point in time, Amanda wasn't really too keen on having another dog. She wanted to do something with Mason first.
I was completely against having another dog. Mason was only 1.5 years, and I had a lot of things that I needed to learn as a handler, a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish with him first. And the thought of having a second puppy, another dog, which would make our household have 4, it was a hard no.
Yeah.
But then, what did Darren do?
So I bring 2 dogs, and so Amanda is like, I can't stay here if that puppy's going to be here until you sell him. And so I coaxed her into like kind of going with me to the airport.
No, you're missing a very key component in this story. When Darren was talking to this gentleman in Germany, when he was only looking for a puppy for himself, he got sent 3 different male puppies. The first pick named Mingo. The second pick was named Max. I absolutely fell in love with the second pick. I said, Darren, Max is the puppy. I just know, I feel it in my heart. He is the puppy of this litter. You get first pick male. That's the one that I think that you should choose. But everybody said, no, Mingo's the first pick. Choose Mingo. And so when Darren ended up shipping 2 puppies in, he Mingo, the first pick, and he brought Max, the second pick, which is the puppy that I especially wanted for him, but also for me and for us and for our household. So when Darren says that I was totally against him shipping 2 puppies, that's the reason why. It's because I fell in love with Max right off the hop, and he was the puppy that I thought Darren should choose. But he went with Mingo and brought Max as well, and was planning on selling him or training him and then selling him or doing something else. But that ended up not being the case for long, because I had always fallen in love with Maxie, and somehow I got swindled into having 2 dogs. But I say that negatively, but it couldn't have been more positive. I love that puppy with my whole heart, and I'm so grateful to have him, and he's just the best ever. And seeing the 2 of them and, our 2 older dogs, it's just so complete, our little pack. So it all worked out in the end, but yeah, you can't leave that part out.
Yeah, and as soon as we picked up the puppies and brought them out of the crate, we brought them to a little green space. Why is this moving? That's okay. Brought a little green space to them and let them out. The first puppy that runs up to Amanda was Mingo. And I'm like, here's your puppy. And she goes, that's not my dog. So, yeah, so Max just basically rode on her lap all the way home, and from that day on she's been in love with him, and he'd never ever go anywhere now. So I always had it in the back of my mind that she would be taking him. I'd never sell that dog once he came here. So I was prepared that if I had to I would, but it would just totally break her heart. But I'm glad she took him, and now she's enjoying.
But how could you not? He's the cutest, sweetest little beast of a dog.
Yeah, so yeah, and they both, it's pretty interesting because like the difference in personalities and being from the same litter, and it's not always the wisest maybe taking 2 from the same litter and at the same age. It's a lot of work for us, and having 4 dogs and intact males also. So but we seem to manage, and we have a little system to rotate them and not tick off our neighbors through barking too much, and we've already had a couple of confrontations with them.
Yeah.
But hopefully those are resolved for a little while.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah. Yeah, when you get your neighbors yelling over the fence, telling your dogs to shut up, and like that doesn't go over very well.
Not
But
with me, at least.
yeah,
No.
but so yeah, so that's just a little introductory on us, and we'll have more of a kind of scheduled podcast coming up in the future and topics that everybody would like to hear and about the IGP sport. I'm also a teaching helper for the association that I belong with, and a national level helper. Um, and but anything on this podcast has nothing to do with our association that we're with. Our opinions and our suggestions are completely on of our own. So just a little disclaimer there. I know like some people can get a little touchy on that kind of subject, but these are all of our own opinions and things. Like I'd like to do some helper videos to help some of those people out there being a teaching helper. My own personal opinion on how helper work should be done, helper etiquette, and to make the sport the best that we can, and not lose more than what we have lost already through politics in our sport. So hopefully that'll be educational for everybody, and some training tips and some home stuff. And
Yeah. We have a lot of high hopes for this podcast, a lot of really good ideas. Well, we think they're really good ideas of what we want to share, and we'll do some stories. We'll talk about some of our favorite brands, some products. We'll talk about training, the sport, obviously, our own journeys, take you along the way with us. But of course, as always, if there's any specific questions, comments, topics that you want us to discuss, please leave them in the comment section below, and we'll be sure to include them in future videos. We'd also like to have some guests at some points in time. There's a lot of different trials and events that we're going to be going to over the course of the year. It's kind of the perfect time to get this going because it's right at the beginning of spring and trial season and lots of fun events and things to come. So we'll take you along the journey there and maybe introduce you to some people along the way and guest star them in our episodes.
Yeah, there's some really great handlers and trainers out there, and people who've gone to really high levels that we'd like to bring on and pick their brains a little bit and get their opinions on the sport, so that can help you guys out in the future too. So, and especially the dogs, it comes all about the dog here, and whatever's best for the dog and to keep our working dog sports alive. So thanks for everybody for joining us, and we'll see you in the future.
Thanks. Okay, let's go.